Picture this. You take a single dollar bill, just $1. If you had handed that dollar to Warren Buffett 60 years ago and just walked away, today it wouldn't just be a few bucks. It would be worth over $55,000. Think about that for a second. It's a completely mind-boggling number. But how exactly did he pull that off? Is it some elite insider secret? Is it literally magic? Well, today in this explainer, we are going to completely deconstruct the Warren Buffett playbook. We're tearing it down using hard data, deep academic research, and his very own letters.
For decades, academics have stared at Buffett's insane track record and asked a very serious question. Is the guy just lucky? You know, there's this famous debate in finance called the coin-flipping monkey theory. It basically says, hey, if you have enough monkeys flipping coins, eventually one of them is going to hit heads 50 times in a row. For the longest time, efficient market economists argued that Buffett was exactly that, just the one lucky monkey, a massive statistical fluke in a totally random market. But is that actually true?
Well, a massive study by AQR Capital Management decided to rigorously test this. They dug through decades of Buffett's data to solve the mystery once and for all. And their conclusion? His success is absolutely not a coin flip. It's entirely mathematically explainable. His returns are simply a reward for leveraging cheap, safe, high-quality stocks. No magic wands, just a highly disciplined, repeatable system.
All right, let's get right into it with Section 1, Addressing Misconceptions, and what we call the Munger shift.
Before we can even get to the real math, we've got to clear up a massive beginner misconception. Early on in his career, Buffett followed a strategy called cigar butt investing. This meant scouring the market for terrible, struggling companies that were just dirt cheap. It's literally like finding a discarded cigar butt on the sidewalk that still has one free puff left in it. And yeah, it worked, but it was incredibly stressful. Then Charlie Munger steps in. He convinced Buffett to completely shift his focus to buying exceptional businesses. Munger taught him that it's far better to buy a great business at a fair price than a fair business at a great price. Finding companies with actual pricing power, that became the true foundation of their wealth.
Okay, so let's dive into the actual mechanics. The crucial thing to understand is that Buffett's modern playbook boils down to 4 highly structured, easy-to-follow steps. Step 1, buy quality and safety. We're talking boring, predictable companies. Step 2, ensure they have an economic moat, some kind of competitive advantage protecting them from rivals. Step 3, calculate the true cash they generate, which is called owner earnings. And finally, Step 4, supercharge those returns with incredibly cheap leverage.
And honestly, the results speak for themselves when you follow those steps and find the perfect company. 47.8%. That is the percentage of Berkshire Hathaway's entire stock portfolio that was made up of just one single company in mid-2023, Apple. Now, we all know Buffett notoriously avoided tech stocks for decades because he said he didn't understand them. But the thing is, he didn't buy Apple as a tech stock. He bought it as a consumer brand. It had an undeniable economic moat, immense brand loyalty, and just massive cash flow. When he finds an exceptional business, he doesn't diversify just to feel safe. He concentrates heavily.
Moving right along to Section 2, the secret weapon, leverage.
So buying safe, boring companies is great and all, but how in the world do you get 55,000 to 1 returns on them? The answer is his absolute secret weapon, insurance float. I'm going to break this down like we're in a 10th grade econ class. Imagine you want to buy stocks, so you get a loan. Normally, you're paying the bank interest every single month, right? Well, because Buffett owns insurance companies, people pay in their premiums up front. He gets to hold on to billions of dollars for years and years before ever paying out a claim. He is getting a massive loan, but his customers are actually paying him to hold the money. That giant pool of cash, that's the float.
So what exactly does he do with that float? The AQR researchers dug into the balance sheets and found out exactly how much leverage he uses. It turns out Buffett leverages his portfolio by about 1.7 to 1. That means for every dollar of equity he has, he invests an extra 70 cents using this borrowed insurance float. That leverage magnifies his returns on those safe, boring companies and just pushes his gains into the stratosphere.
But here's the absolute kicker, the actual cost of that leverage. Anyone can take out a loan to buy stocks, sure, but it usually costs a fortune in interest, right? Buffett's average cost for his insurance float is just 1.72%. That is roughly 3 percentage points below the average treasury bill rate. It's practically free money. This structural advantage is a massive, completely unmagical reason why his returns are so incredibly high. All right, that brings us to Section 3, finding the margin of safety.
Now wait a second. If you use leverage and the market crashes, you can get completely wiped out. It's super risky. So how has Buffett survived every single crash without a fire sale? It's all because of his margin of safety. And a lot of beginners make a huge mistake here. They think a margin of safety just means buying a stock when the price drops 20%. But as the research shows, it's actually a multi-dimensional safety net. It's not checkers, it's 3D chess. It is about making sure the business itself can survive a catastrophic crisis.
There are really three forgotten sources of this safety. First, balance sheet strength. Basically, does a company have enough cash to survive a total global shutdown? Second, sustainable growth. Can they continue to grow without taking on a mountain of debt? And third, a competitive moat. When times get really tough, do their customers abandon them, or are they totally locked in? If a company has these three things, that is your true safety net when you start applying leverage.
Next up, Section 4, the real math, owner earnings.
So, we know we need quality, we need leverage, and we need a margin of safety. But how do we actually know if a company is truly making money? Here is the biggest trap for new investors, assuming that accounting profit equals real profit. It absolutely does not. If you're just looking at net income or earnings per share on Yahoo Finance, you are looking at numbers that are heavily distorted by accounting rules. They simply do not tell you the actual, real-world cash the business generated.
Instead, Buffett calculates what he calls owner earnings. Think of it this way. Let's say you owned a local laundromat. You might make $50,000 in profit on paper, but if you have to spend $20,000 buying new washing machines just to keep the doors open, your true take-home cash is only $30,000. Owner earnings is the cold, hard, distributable cash you can safely put in your pocket at the end of the year without damaging the business.
Let's look at some real U.S. stock market examples using historical data from Microsoft and Amazon. Just check out Amazon's net income near the top there. Only $328 million. Looks pretty terrible, right? But follow the formula down. You add back non-cash depreciation. You subtract the maintenance capital expenditures. Then you add in working capital. Because Amazon collects cash up front from its customers, suddenly their actual owner earnings are over $10 billion. If you only looked at basic net income, you would have completely missed an incredible wealth-generating machine.
And finally, Section 5, the ultimate takeaway. We've covered the shift to quality, the magic of float leverage, the margin of safety, and calculating owner earnings. So what does it all mean? Well, look at the giant blue mountain in the middle of this chart. That's the performance of every actively managed mutual fund, basically just clustering right around average. But you see that tiny arrow way out on the right? That's Warren Buffett. He sits so far outside the normal bell curve, it's almost comical. As the hard data proves, his system of safe stocks combined with cheap leverage is undeniably real, and more importantly, it's repeatable.
And that brings us to the single biggest insight I want you to take away from this explainer today. You absolutely do not need magic to build wealth. You don't need insider tips, and you sure don't need hyper-complex algorithms. What you actually need is extreme patience with boring, high-quality rules. Wealth generation isn't a lottery ticket. It is a mechanical, step-by-step process of holding quality companies over decades, sitting quietly, and just letting compound interest do all the heavy lifting.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the data behind the legend, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another explainer. You definitely won't want to miss our next one, where we're going to show you exactly how to calculate your very own multidimensional margin of safety. Until then, ask yourself, are you chasing magic in the stock market, or are you ready to finally build a machine? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.